that's not good for the guest. You gotta pee and then, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
There's nobody to follow up with?
It's an automatic thing. They would just give it to you automatically.
So the people are taking your money is not the people enabling you to watch it. So you gotta go to the money and say, I'm not getting any information.
I don't need to do anything. I did my part. It will automatically send you the code and stuff. And it didn't. Do you want those buttons buttoned?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Silverman here at the Center for Contemporary Arts. Welcome to the CCA Living Room. We're really grateful to have you here. As always, it's a very, very special night for many reasons. One is that we are celebrating Santa Fe Indian Market with SWAIA. I'm hoping that Kim Peony from SWAIA will jump on and say hello sometime soon. We're doing this in partnership with SWAIA in celebration of all their efforts. They pulled off a miracle and got a market together online in no time, which is quite remarkable. It's still up. Check it out. I will post the link later. but much appreciated for all that they do for Santa Fe and for Indigenous artists around the Southwest and North America. And we are doing this in partnership with the wonderful, beloved Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. Gary Farmer is intricately involved with the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. They bring incredible works here and filmmakers here and conversations, stories, energy, and New Mexico is much richer for all that they do. Thanks to Jacques and Lizette, and congratulations to Lizette, whose baby I think is 6 weeks old now. Anyway, we're really grateful for their partnership in this. I will say before we do the introductions, we're going to have a lively conversation with lots of film clips. Join the conversation through chat. I was just scrolling through the chat, and it seems like we've got people from all around. I'm just going to read some. Malcolm from New Jersey, Matthew from San Diego. We've got Ken and Rita right here in Santa Fe, Jennifer from New York City, Ben from Colorado, Rebecca from the Smoky Mountains, which I guess could be the real Smoky Mountains or pretty much any mountains in America right now, Tom from Minneapolis, Genevieve from Nova Scotia, Silk from Toronto, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you guys all for joining us in this program today. Kimberly, if you are out in the audience, I think you are. If you can, Amra, I think you're in the audience. You guys can figure out how to get a presenter invite and join us in the living room. I believe that Michelle Thrush, who plays Nobody's Girlfriend, is going to join us later in the program. Until then, I'm really thrilled to introduce Gary Farmer, who is, well, first to say he's one of my heroes. He's an actor, musician, activist, artist, filmmaker. He's a media visionary. He's received 3 Independent Spirit Award nominations, one for Powwow Highway, one for Dead Man, one for Smoke Signals. Equally impressive is the work he's done to promote Indigenous media worldwide. He's the founder of the Canada-wide Aboriginal Voices Radio Network. He also did the Aboriginal Voices Film Festival and magazine. Incredible work, groundbreaking work, an example of what can be done for independent media globally. His well-known as a stage actor in Canada before he became a film actor. His other notable roles include the film and television adaptation of Tony Hillerman's novels, the score with Robert De Niro, Marlon Brando, Ed Norton, and Angela Bassett, believe it or not. He's also a brilliant musician. If you get a chance to see the Troublemakers play, please do. You will get sweaty, I promise. And he also recorded the best-selling audiobook version of Louise Erdrich's The Roundhouse, which was winner of the 2012 National Book Award for Fiction. He will be remembered always, though, for his role as Nobody in Dead Man, which is 25 years old this year, and we're really glad to have you here, Gary, to help us talk about it. Welcome, everyone. Gary Farmer.
Hello, everybody. Play a little lacrosse. Yes, thank you, Jason. Thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you all.
Yeah. So, happy birthday to Dead Man.
Yes, 25 years. I think we started shooting it probably late September. I remember being on top of a mountain prior to shooting, doing some research, staying up there for 3 days. It was getting cold. So I think we finished just before Christmas. I remember chasing the jet down the runway on December 23rd.
Can I ask you, before we talk directly about Dead Man, but just to kind of give it some context, did you watch American Westerns? Did your family watch American Westerns when you were growing up? Did you guys see those? Did your community watch them? Were they part of your life?
Well, Jay Silverheels or, Mr. Smith, he was a lacrosse player, just like I was playing there. And he played Lone Ranger, or he was Tonto for, so the community was used to people being in television, I guess. because he was, the Smith family's a big family in our community of 20,000. So it's not like it was, then we had some other notables like Pauline Johnson, was a poet, kind of traveled Canada for sure, and to England, I think. So, there was a few people, and of course, Graham's from my community, Graham Greene. And we have a lot of performing artists, musicians from my particular community. It's a large native community. I mean, outside of Navajo, it's probably the next largest group of people living in one spot. And we're fighting for some land right now, kind of having the protest and stand up for I don't know, can't be more than 100 acres there inside this small town of Caledonia, Ontario. But that's an ongoing battle for the last 20 years, it seems. So, there's a lot of creatives came from my community historically.
Did the American Westerns, the John Ford Westerns, et cetera, were they part of your upbringing?
The ones I remember, of course, is Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. I always thought I was named after Dale Evans. My middle name is Dale.
Huh.
I was more of a Roy Rogers guy. I mean, I'm not sure I put it all together as a kid watching the Westerns that I knew. I mean, I had to speak up for all the Indians because I was the only one in the classroom. I mean, that's why I related to nobody so well, because in a way I felt like I got captured and put in a cage and taken to England, going to school and being the only Indian, and then especially during grammar school, it was, the family moved next to another native family, and we were the only natives on the block, and I was the only native in my class. So I always had to speak up for the Indians, but, we're an Eastern tribe. We're a little different than the Longhouse culture than certainly the Western culture, which is mostly presented. So, just your little between your res and the stateside in Buffalo and Niagara Falls there, 60 miles was my world, only being in two different countries. So
I guess, oops.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. That's okay. Oh, Kimberly, you're here. If you turn on your camera, it's the top left up there. We'll get a look at you.
There I am.
Hi, Kimberly.
I'm sorry.
Hi,
I was
Michelle.
trying to turn myself on.
There you go. Okay, good. Gary, I'm just gonna interrupt a second, and just so we can have Kimberly say hello on behalf of Indian Market.
Hi,
Hello,
Kimberly.
everyone. Yes. Hi, Gary. I'm so glad that you're here with us. Once again, I just love what Jason's doing, and we're so glad to partner with you. And we are definitely in the home stretch of our virtual Indian market, and I'm glad to be here. And thank you so much, everyone, for showing up and being a part of this. Exciting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. And we want to say hello to our very special guest, Michelle, who plays, you'll remember, Nobody's Girlfriend in Dead Man. Michelle is a legendary actor in Canada. She's won multiple awards, including a Gemini Award, which is kind of like the America's Golden Globe Awards. That one was for her role in Blackstone. She's also starred in Malchus and Flax, Mixed Blessing, North of 60, and many others. She's also a theater performer, in addition to many traditional theater work. She does one-woman plays that she tours with. Her latest is Find Your Own Inner Elder, which at 52 I'm still working on, so I can't wait to see that. And she teaches comedy and theater to young people. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to be here. Hey, Gary.
Good. Okay, we're going to spotlight Gary again here and talk a little bit about the origins of Dead Man. So, the American Western has basically told these fairly heroic, glamorous stories about the American West, and they kind of suggest that settling the American West, settling in quotations, was an orderly, kind of ethical, arc, had an ethical arc. And you and Jim and the crew tell a completely different story about the way that Westerners arrived in the American West. Can you talk a little bit about your first conversations with Jim about that?
Well, you first, you always want to contextualize like what tribe it is that he was thinking, and then he had Crow and Blackfoot, I believe. And me being kind of Cayuga or Six Nations, which is I'm like four of six, so I'm like Mohawk, Oneida, Tuscarora, and Cayuga mix. Both my parents are from the res, so my instinct is always to weave my own culture in, like even the word Toronto, and as one of the places that they dragged me before they took me to England. And so I tried to work that in. I worked some of my own language in to the film, and to prepare for the film, I just went back to the man that gave me so much guidance for this film, Powell Highway, which is what Jim said he cast me from. So I went back to the same kind of man, and he put me on a fast for 3 days. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And it set the tone for all the work, really. And I remember watching the film at Cannes for the first time. And, of course, the order of how the ceremonial work was to go in the course of the film, of course, when Jim cut it, had no significance because we never talked about that, So that was kind of interesting as a viewer of the work after. But that was where the effort came from, to kind of find the guidance for me to guide Johnny back to where he belonged, That's the truth. Oh, I can't hear you, Jason.
I can't hear you either.
We lost your audio, Jason.
Sorry. Did you have to guide Jim at all? I mean, in terms of looking at the original screenplay, were there things that didn't resonate with you, that felt false? I know authenticity is important to you.
Well, just before that, I had an elder from my community pull me to her kind of bed before she passed and asked me, as the actor, not to play any more kind of drunk Indians. Had to play that a lot in my career, and of course, not that alcoholism isn't a reality, but she just asked me not to do it anymore. And so when there was a scene in the film that I asked Jim if we didn't have to do that one, but yeah, I mean, sometimes though, one of the most amazing stories I remember is that, Jim kind of wrote that screenplay and never really knew the significance of tobacco in Native American culture. Kind of, one of the sacred items like sage or cedar, sweetgrass, the medicines. So when I kind of told him the significance of that, I could just see him kind of light up, like, wow, like, so, the whole concept of writers kind of channeling things, and who knows why he wrote that, but it was an ongoing joke. And in reality, I was trying to teach him to kind of, you got to make an offering, but no one ever really got that except probably the Native community in a way. Kept asking, trying to help teach them, how to, how to pray in a way, So there was a lot of little things like that happened in the making of the film.
I am going to play a clip, if that's okay with all. If you guys wouldn't mind muting yourself, because this is a little bit where you're going with the story, perhaps, is how your story gets told in this. So I'm going to play this one clip, and then we'll be back in just a minute.
My blood is mixed.
My blood is mixed.
Was
My mother was Umgampe
My
Pakani.
father is Absoluka.
My father is Absoluka.
This mixture was not respected.
This mixture was not
As a
respected.
small boy, I was often
Small
left to
boy.
myself.
I was
But I
often
spent
left to
many
myself.
months stalking the elk people to prove I would soon become a good hunter. One day, finally, my elk relatives took pity on me, and a young elk gave his life to me. With only my knife, I took his life. As I was preparing to cut the meat, white men came upon me. They were English soldiers. I cut one with my knife, but they hit me on the head with a rifle. All went black. My spirit seemed to leave me. I was then taken east in a cage. I was taken to Toronto, then Philadelphia, and then to New York. And each time I arrived in another city, somehow the white men had moved all their people there ahead of me. Each new city contained the same white people as the last, and I could not understand how a whole city of people could be moved so quickly. Eventually, I was taken on a ship across the Great Sea over to England, and I was paraded before them like a captured animal, an exhibit. And so I mimicked them, imitating their ways, hoping that they might lose interest in this young savage, but their interest only grew. So they placed me into the white man's schools. And it was there that I discovered, in a book, the words that you, William Blake, had written. They were powerful words, and they spoke to me. But I made careful plans, and I eventually escaped. Once again, I crossed the great ocean. I saw many sad things as I made my way back to the lands of my people. Once they realized who I was, the stories of my adventures angered them. They called me a liar, Exebice, he who talks loud, saying nothing. They ridiculed me, my own people, and I was left to wander the earth alone. I am nobody.
Gary, are you here with us? Let's see who we've got here. Gary, are you there? Uh-oh, we have lost them. Kim, it's you and me now. Here comes Michelle to save the day. I think we lost Gary. I'm sure he'll be back with us in a sec.
Yeah.
Okay. Michelle, we're putting you on the spot because Gary has lost his connection, I think. Can you hear us, Michelle?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So will your video come on? Oh, there you go. Beautiful. I'm not sure if we can hear you now. I don't see your mic on.
Oh,
There you go.
Technology.
I know it's
There we are.
tricky. New platforms too. Can you tell us
I'm
about?
from
Oh,
Canada
so
too, so
please.
it might be a little harder for me to get to you guys from all the way up here.
It's beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to join the project and what you first encountered when you with it, as Jim told you about it?
Yeah, I got a call from the production office. It was like, I don't know, November. I can't remember when I came on board, but somewhere in the middle of filming. And they asked if I wanted to work on a film with Jim Jarmusch and Gary Farmer. And I was like, hell yeah. And Gary and me had worked together. So he asked Jim if I could play Nobody's Girl. So that was really cool. And then Jim brought me down a week early. He bought my SAG membership, which was wonderful. Yeah, so he brought me down a week early, and me and Gary and Johnny got to hang out for a while, which was awesome to get to know Johnny better. And then Jim and me wrote my scene together. And then I went to my mom and my aunt, and I got it interpreted into Cree. And Gary taught me so much to get off book with that. And we were doing my monologue like all over Oregon, wherever we were, parks and walks to the store.
I do want to play that scene. Maybe we'll get to it. But I want to say one thing that's really interesting to me about the scene is that it's not subtitled. And so it seems like it's the only people who will be able to understand it are Cree speakers.
Yeah, that was intentional. Jim did not want subtitles placed, and he thought the emotion of a woman should be known by everyone. So we all recognize that woman who's pissed off like that.
I have a feeling that it's a funny back and forth between Nobody and his girlfriend. And so I feel like that the decision to not subtitle that makes it a little gift just for the Cree people.
Yeah, it was.
How funny is it?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about what I say. The backstory that Jim and myself talked about before we wrote that scene was we sat in his hotel room, Jim and I, and he explained to me who Nobody was and his backstory. And he said, Nobody's been wandering around. He doesn't really have a people that accept him. And you, Nobody's Girl, you're in love with him and you've been waiting for him and you want to have his child. And so that monologue was basically said, because I don't know if you want to play the scene first or if you want me to talk about what the content is.
Let's do that real quick. Stand by here. We'll play this scene. If you guys, presenters, wouldn't mind muting yourself, here we go.
Nobody? William Blake.
Nechamos.
Kituin kia sagi hinga skuts maskwa maga kita ta pue mutagnes.
She's upset.
Nia gagi simu tota tipskau pisem. Tatau tipskau kutsawat simsin. Maga moya ta pue teman. Momania, kaya pitsomania. Skayo yan ego a me oftan. Kita gay.
Itchimos.
Msketen. Msketen kaya pitskanto min. Ha, eu sei.
Itchimos.
Oh, what?
Jasqua.
She's beautiful.
Itchimos. She didn't mean to call you that.
Huh?
But you sure interrupted a very
We lost Michelle in the midst of that, I think.
Michelle, you back?
Yeah, it just took me a ways, so I had to restart my computer and everything to get it back.
Gary, tell us what you remember about that scene until we get Michelle back.
I don't know. It's really nice to see it live again because, yeah, we really worked on that to make sure. I was really, trying to push language in the film. Like the more language we got, if I'm going, people, it's nice to know that to even think or dream that people were multilingual in our own indigenous languages, where and by the end of the film, we didn't have enough dollars left to put all the Mi'kmaq, the Makah, let the Makah language live, and it was very upsetting for me because, I just wanted to present that kind of multilingual indigenous environment prior to overwhelming contact.
And so that was true, is that because nobody's traveling between a lot of different cultures. So
Yeah.
how many languages do you think nobody speaks?
Well, I think I worked in about 7 languages overall.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was good. And I eventually went back and, it inspired me. I mean, I had studied some before, but I put about 6 months immersion in my own Cayuga language. So, Scanos Wigwego Negaso Hyantuas. So, I remember Floyd Red Crow Westerman. You remember him as an actor and a performer. He was in Dances with Wolves. He was like 10 Bears. And, and they had to learn, they spent a couple months or at least a month learning Lakota prior to shooting that film. All those actors studied the language. And Floyd was so proud that he got paid to learn his own language,
Michelle, let's see, you're here. Michelle, we'd love, if you can't get your audio, your video, we'd still love to hear your voice telling us a little more about that scene. And what did you call William Blake?
Yeah, I don't know.
As we might not, we have her in name only, unfortunately. Okay, if she joins us again, we will come back to her. Gary, go back to the scene where nobody tells his story. Can you talk about how you found that moment in yourself? You talked a little bit about it, and was that exactly as written? Did you evolve it with Jim as you shot it, or before? Did you talk about what was at stake with him? Can you talk a little bit about the process of writing that and coming up with that moment?
That speech was pretty well written by Jim. I worked hard at learning that with my then wife at the time, Jean Starwars. She was. I was just thinking about that. Preparing for that speech was, it was a. I remember specifically because it was the only time that Kate came to the set. And we were all in kind of the same hotel I think we were in Oregon by then, and I'm not sure. I think it was. No, we must have shot that in Arizona. But anyway, Kate Moss was there on set that weekend. And I remember working my heart out off on that speech. And, Kate and Johnny walked by, and she said, "Oh, there's Gary," and I never did. I kind of met her, but I never really got to get to know her at all, and that's what I remembered most. But I worked on that speech. I again, some of the histrionics of it I added, but for the most part, that was Jim's writing there. Yeah. But I really related to that story from my own upbringing and being kind of the only one, and finding your strengths in people's literature, because we never had, our literature's only been alive for 30 years as indigenous peoples literature, really. I mean, there's some poets in the 1800s and stuff, but we never had literature of our own. And to have me relate to William Blake and for what he all stood for over there in the motherland, it was vital as a character for me. It was really vital, and it reminded me of my own upbringing in a non-Indian environment. Right?
So can I ask you, I mean, you said that you were told not to play stereotypical Indians anymore.
Well, no, she asked me not to play, that particular thing, but
there's not that, there aren't now, and there certainly weren't then many opportunities, it seems, to do anything else.
Yeah, of course. But, I didn't feel, I mean, it's a good question for Jim. I think it could have worked in the film, maybe, for sure. I mean, it was his thing. I just asked, and he seemed to, and we spent more time on the, I don't like, if you're going to lead us, if you're going to kind of be a ceremonial person and perform that kind of ritual to help a man get back to the next world, I didn't see the value of alcohol in that. That's not how it is. So
I guess my question is less specifically about alcohol than it is about the ability to create a fully actualized human on screen. I mean, you had that opportunity in Powwow Highway and certainly here. So can you talk about that experience? Was that how that felt?
I don't know. I just don't think people realize the impact of that. Not that doesn't happen or nothing, but it's not that I think that would have rounded the performance anymore, but I don't know. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Jace.
All right. Michelle's back. So while we have her,
good.
We're going to check in with her too. Okay, good. Wow. It looks like you're right next door now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I changed devices, so.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, good. So we were talking about that scene, and we would love to hear more about what she tells her lover there.
Okay, so Nobody's Girl, in that speech, what I remember is her saying, because William Blake stumbles on, sees two bears. You guys saw the scene, but she gets thrown away by nobody. So she's very pissed off, and she jumps up and she says something about, how dare you? Are you going to throw me away like that? You told me that you were going to love me like a bear, but you're just a little tiny coyote. Do you know how hard it was for me to meet you here tonight under this particular moon so that we could be together? And then I look at Johnny, I walk over to him, I spit on him, and I say, Kita gai, which in Cree language it's like a really bad word. It's like, am I allowed to swear? I don't know.
Encouraged.
Is this a family audience? I don't know.
I don't think it could be after watching Gary naked from the bottom down there.
Seeing his butt fly across. Yeah, no, I walk up to Johnny and I say, Kita gai, which is cocksucker in Cree. It's just a bad name to say to somebody. And Yeah, and then I say, "Oh, us," and I take off, and then my nobody comes after me, and he says, "Nichamos," which is sweetheart. So yeah, Gary spoke Cree there too.
Beautiful.
Oh, and something else that came to me while I was playing with this thing that Johnny and I spoke about much later, like a couple of years after the film came out, was that Nobody's Girl was the only person on the dead man journey that wasn't killed. If that's a little nuance there.
Too bad that's not the reality.
Yeah, actually, maybe we can jump to that. I wanted to ask that question, but I was the first time I saw this, the second time, the sixth time, and when I saw it this week, so disappointed that nobody dies at the end, and it's just kind of almost a cliche that he dies at the end. Can you talk about that?
Well, I never thought I was going to die till I think I went back for my sister's wedding. I left the set while they shot some of the Nevada train stuff, and when I came back, I had a pretty emotional time there in the redwoods. I guess I take things pretty seriously, so when the ending appeared that I was going to die too, like I didn't like that much. I kept arguing the meek inherited the earth. I started arguing the Bible with Jim, at least, trying to say, yeah, I got to go back with my girlfriend, and I got a life, I don't. But as it grew closer, that was the reality, and I began to have to deal with my own death, like for real. And that's when I realized I don't think men deal with their own passing very well. Women have a better handle on that. And anyway, I don't know why. I'm still thinking about that. But when I realized that was what was going to happen, I argued for a different ending. I thought, well, Johnny's still got the gun, like he takes one last shot, ricochets here, ricochets there, ricochets one more time and hits him right between the eyes, Nobody runs off. But that's not the way it was. Anyway, I always thought this image of indigenous people getting back the earth after all that's been through, getting back our land, getting back, getting nature back, So that was my dream for the ending. And of course, I never directed this one. Jim Jarmusch did. But I think we were. I'll never forget. We were at a San Francisco Film Festival, I think it was, and some old hippie came up to us. He says, "Jim, man, I really love the film, but the squares won't get it. The squares won't get it." And that was like the best review. I always laugh because there's a lot of people said, "What was that film about?" And I'll just get a good laugh out of that. But sometime later, Jim, wrote me back in as nobody in the next film, which is Ghost Dog: The Ways of the Samurai. So just to say, that I was right, that nobody still is alive,
And raising pigeons on some roof somewhere.
Well, helping out, help out a friend when he's got animals to take care of in his absence. I do that a lot.
So I want to ask one more question. We've got a couple questions from the audience, but in that scene that we showed prior to Michelle's scene, it's a really deep. I mean, it's a deep, deep scene. One of the things that you see is a little flash of the devastation, the genocidal devastation of a village. That scene is repeated towards the end too, and I don't think we've seen. It's a scene out of Vietnam, really, and I don't think we've seen on film that kind of treatment of Western expansion. or westward expansion, or genocide, or in occupation, or whatever words we want to use. Can you talk a little bit about Jim's vision with that?
Michelle?
I don't know. I don't know what Jim's vision was about that.
Well, it was about the expansion of Western culture, and you started with the train. I mean, those images are pretty strong. With them killing the buffalo, trying to starve us out, right? I mean, that was the history of the relationship, was get rid of these people, right? So that's the reality. It's a hard reality for America to swallow, and I guess that's why they're able to kind of dehumanize us for the course of their film history prior to this film, I guess you could say, is because that's what they had to do. They had to demonize us to sanctify their actions in terms of taking the land and exterminating the people. It was a full-out genocide. So it's hard to accept as an indigenous person. We have to live with that, and anytime there's an artist from the ilks of Jim Jarmusch wants to help correct some of that, at least in cinematic history, it's a good thing. He did a good thing.
He did a great thing.
And, I don't think a lot of our communities, I'm pretty sure this isn't their favorite movie, when you have your culture taken away, like we experienced through that genocidal period, and even still today with the starving out of, care when you're fighting a disease that's directed at them in a way, and people of color, and still get no support. And it's a way of life, right? So any historical fictional film in your mind that can take you to this place of reality is good, because once we can get through that and people can learn from their history and move on, is what we're asking right now, then we can move on in a good way. But until then, not much is going to change. So.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, did you want to add to that?
I think he spoke very eloquently. I'm very proud of the work that Jim did. It was such an extravagant gesture, I think, to take that story and allow North America, to see it. And it's important. And I just think that it's very groundbreaking. And Gary's portrayal of Nobody was something that I don't think has ever been seen quite the same since or before Dead Man. Is that portrayal of Nobody, and everything that character went through was probably for a lot of people the first time they'd ever experienced the indigenous experience. It's quite brilliant.
Can I put you on the spot and ask you what it is about Nobody that is fundamentally different from past portrayals of Indigenous people on screen?
Are you asking me or Gary?
I'm asking you.
Okay. I think, well, just the humanness of Nobody was just so beautiful. As Gary was saying, a lot of times Indigenous characters through history have been portrayed very just one-dimensional, and Nobody came out, and it was like so many people. There was humor in Nobody. There was kindness and compassion, and just you saw a human being, and to me that was something that was brilliant in Dead Man. More than any other aspect to me of the film was the humanness of Nobody, and that journey that he takes you on, that's so heartbreaking and so beautiful, and so he's so accepting of the world around him. I love that character.
He's also very healthy emotionally and physically. And I'm interested by that because, it is a world that is burning in a lot of ways, and a world that's under siege and it's constantly under siege. And yet this character who has learned to navigate these multiple worlds is strong and healthy and thoughtful and alert and vibrant, which I've always found interesting. Michelle or Gary, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that's how, I mean, not to be kind of too cultural on everyone, but I don't know. I remember going to Mexico for the first time back in the early 80s. And all indigenous people down there, it's just like, I always say Mexico is the biggest Indian reservation I ever been to. And traveling through there back in the early 80s, prior to all what's going on now, I never felt so much love in my life. I mean, I was muchos kilos, to everyone down there, and I accepted that. And but the kids would follow me, and parents would come out and take me home and feed me, and I could stay with them as long as I wanted. And I was so gifted walking through Mexico, great big Indian guy from, Ontario, New York State. And so I don't know. That's how indigenous people are a lot, unless, there's trust factor now, right? It's all changed a lot. A lot of influence is coming in by the day. So it's really hard to regulate the community like one you once did, or the beauty. It's getting harder to find because the world's changing so fast for them. But I don't know. I think that's how ingrainedly that the people are. There's a lot of love.
Yeah. I do want to give, since you're mentioning Mexico, I want to give a quick plug for your movie, The Gift, which is about the history of corn and the current state of corn in Mexico. It's a really beautiful documentary that Gary wrote and directed and shot. So it's a bit hard to find, but we've shown it a few times and it really is beautiful. So I just want to
I
plug.
worked on that also. I just need to say, remember, Gary, I set up the cameras in the cornfields.
That's right. Santi even credits me for bringing her back to dance with that piece, which is great.
It was a beautiful piece, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, some questions from the audience. One is one that we're all curious about, and actually, I will say that there is a video with Jim Jarmusch talking about this on YouTube through the Criterion Collection. Neil Young, what do you? That soundtrack is really something special. Can we talk a little bit about? I'm sure he wasn't there on set. He saw the film after it was in rough cut form. But can you talk about what he brought to the film? Your experience of it, what you know about it?
Well, that's when I went away, but Jim got tickets for everybody. I swear it was down. Neil does fundraising for a Native American school in the middle of northern Arizona there somewhere. And he took the crew and everybody to see the show. And the story goes that Jim went back and said, Neil, would you do the soundtrack for this movie I'm shooting? And Neil basically said, can you give me a couple of weeks? That's how it all happened, really. I missed all that. But I became a big fan of Neil after that. I mean, not that I wasn't before. I mean, he's from Emo, Ontario, which is about, 100 miles from my res. And I got to know his sister of late, and she's a songwriter and singer. And for all while Buddy was still alive, oh my gosh, his name slipped me right now, the manager for Neil all those years. I followed Neil around for about 3 or 4 years after the film came out. I must have went to 30 shows and hung out backstage. I jammed with the boys, and Neil would always go into do some yoga or something before the show. So I never really got to hang out with him pre-show, but I spent a lot of times backstage with him, watching his material for 3 or 4 years, and taking friends and girlfriend and stuff, and we had a lot of good times. And one time, I was watching them at the Will Turn, and watching them, I was on stage left, and I decided to go on stage right, and there was a little guy ahead of me there, and I was standing behind him. And all of a sudden, he turned to leave. It was Bob Dylan. But all those guys hang out. They really support each other, and that was really interesting to see all the songwriting support and love they have for each other and for each other's material. Yeah.
Can I also say, do you remember, Gary, when we were in Oregon and jamming? I can't remember whose hotel room we were in, but you had your harmonica and Johnny had his steel guitar, and we were all sitting around somebody's room and you guys were jamming together. That was a great night during
Were you there for I threw him a birthday party, on his birthday?
Okay. No,
we were in Oregon somewhere, and I ordered fried chicken dinner for the whole crew, I think. And we had a big birthday party and a big jam, and Johnny came up. He played the drums that night. He didn't get on the guitar. I thought he would, but we had a lot of players in the crew, so we had a good night that night.
Did you have any secret fantasies that he'd want to add a second harmonica to his band?
No, not with Alice Cooper there. He's got his principal.
Okay. Kimberly, I just want to please jump in and join at any point, of course, if you have questions or something to add. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we love having you here.
And I love listening to the stories. This is awesome.
A question from Matthew Fitzsimmons. A question about the question is that the film shows, and Gary, you addressed this to some extent already, as colonization and occupation as an industrial effort to extract natural resources. It seems like a more honest view of manifest destiny, of course. And the idea of extraction, of course, is still something that we're, wrestling with on a daily basis, right? On tribal lands. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, geez, that's Canada depends. Got 50 years of economy counting on a find of chromite in northern Ontario. They call it the Ring of Fire, and they never found so much chromite. And that's what they build aluminum, stainless steel. And as all these new economies build up around the world, like India, China, Argentina, they all want the stuff we got, right? And they're going to build more planes, more bombs. That's what they need, that chromite. And they don't care. They don't care. If they're counting on 50 years of economy so Canada can maintain its current lifestyle, right? And I don't know when people are going to realize that we can't carry on with this current lifestyle. That's what's got to change, right? We got to find new ways to survive on an earth that's got limited resources. So I don't know when the bell's going to go off for people. I don't know how bad it's got to get before people start to realize what reality we're really dealing with here. But I'm just playing along. I guess I'm lucky. I'm kind of half old, so I don't have a lot longer to hang around and wait for someone to grow up,
Michelle, did you want to add to that, or?
It's so hard to follow, Gary. I come from Alberta, Calgary, Alberta, which is sort of the northern Texas. So I've been very politically involved through the years with various Indigenous peoples' fight against resource extraction. Yeah, I agree. I believe the same thing Gary does. If we don't figure out a way to change course, I think it might be already too late. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, we need to place more value on relationships with each other, on art, on, really family than we do on money and pulling things from the ground and doing all this stuff to build up our sense of self. It's killing us. So yeah, I think we need to definitely find ways to start connecting with each other without having it to be flying around the world all the time and using gas and energy that is not it's not sustainable. So I agree 100%.
Thank you. Gary, I forgot mine. Your scenes with Johnny, to shift back to the film, your scenes with Johnny are some of the kind of richest, most intimate scenes I remember in any film. I mean, they really have such a quality of love and curiosity, and it just seemed like it was really unfolding that way in real time. And I'm going to play a clip, but I want to ask you first about working together. Was there anything that you did particularly, anything that Jim encouraged? Were you guys like that when the camera wasn't rolling? What can you share some stories about the process of working with Johnny?
Well, you know, I hadn't worked with a lot of big stars much. Johnny was pretty big star coming into it, I guess. I was excited, you know. I don't know. I work with a lot of actors, and you just try to. You got to find the center really fast. You know, you got to find where we can meet. But I tell you the truth, Johnny and I really took our time getting to know each other. We didn't rush into anything, and I think that paid off for us. You know, at some level, and we got closer as the film was over, and you know, going to Berlin and hanging out with Hunter Thompson and stuff like that. So, and then our relationship could have carried on if it would have worked out, but as actors, you know, but it didn't happen. But I don't know. I was in a few special situations outside of the film later afterwards, and I really saw kind of a, you know, a human being who cares, and he's very literate. You know, he was very well read, and he cares about the right things. You know, it's hard to watch him now go through all this stuff and have it all before everybody, but I enjoyed working with him. I'd work with him anytime again. I thought he ripped me off a bit in The Lone Ranger. I don't know what was going on there, but I've never had time to joke with him again. I thought for sure I'd come back as a pirate or something, but it didn't work out. But we had a good time together while we worked together. I don't know if
He's a good guy.
anything in terms of his own performance and relationship to me on the set. That was all just us playing natural. You know, we developed a kind of repartee, I guess, and we just rode with it. It was pretty easy. And as time went on, we got closer, so that was good.
Well, let me play a clip that will kind of celebrate this this partnership that you made.
Yeah, good.
I prepared your canoe with cedar boughs. It's time for you to leave now, William Blake. Time for you to go back to where you came from.
You mean Cleveland?
Back to the place where all the spirits came from. And where all the spirits return. This world will no longer concern you.
Found some tobacco.
The tobacco is for your voyage, William Blake.
We're both muted here. Will you unmute, Gary?
I remember after shooting that scene, that was like the last scene of the film, I think, or close to it. It was another big long shot, but I left the set after that for the last time, and I'll never forget because we were way down in a treacherous spot near the ocean, and I had to get airlifted out by a helicopter, and I was in full regalia there, and got on that helicopter, and that was the last image I had, was going way up from the set of that very scene, and flying off for forever. It was a real moment for me when I left that final set on that. That was a wonderful shoot. I mean, they don't shoot movies for, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 days, whatever we were doing that film. If you're lucky to get 25 days anymore in a feature film. So that was the last of the grand old filmmaking days.
Mm. We've got, we'll let you go in a second. There's a couple questions about specific scenes. Actually, these are scenes that we have queued up, but I know we're running out of time. One is a question from Jennifer. She talks about when nobody puts on Blake's hat and makes those kind of jabbering mouth gestures. And she wonders, is that you imagining what it's like to be a white man?
Well, no, they had the fella in a cage in England. I mean, he was schooled in England some. I mean, as the story goes, a lot of us did get captured and taken over there. That's kind of a story that really hasn't been told, and it's not a feature part of this film, I guess, but that story is told. So I picked up a lot of traits. I mean, imagine being paraded in the streets of England as a child, and you've seen all those hats, and they were pretty fashionable types. I mean, the reason they came over here in the first place was to get the beaver, right? For fashion. I mean, fashion's been a big thing for a long time historically, and so I just thought it was a take on mocking that need to be, even though I'm very ornately myself dressed, as are indigenous people generally. Historically, artistically, you made your own clothes all the time and everything around you, right? So it's no different, I guess, but there's a lot of story around that, I guess. Story of its own there. But that's why I was just having some fun with my time in England, I guess.
Right. And then we'll make this the final question. Can you talk about the scene in the trading post, which Ben described as almost Shakespearean? And it does feel like it has this kind of heightened theatricality to it. The scene with Alfred Molina.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought the whole setup of that scene, talking about the impact of the blankets at the top of the hill, coming down and seeing the posters of the wanted us dead, wanted him dead, I guess. I put all the pressure on William Blake, right? Which is kind of fun from a native perspective, It's his gun that's going to correct the injustices, not mine. You're right. And walking in there and that whole setup with, the poster on the sign or on the door, and his vision of Christ is not the same as mine. And even in my own culture, the Christ is in our new way, which they call Handsome Lake. He's one of many prophets. There was more than one. So how they kind of build that image of religion in our, and how that's kind of been used against us to mitigate us and to undermine our own spiritual well-being is kind of the conflict there. You couldn't pick a better actor than Alfred Molina to fight that cause. He's brilliant, and well, that's what that scene is to me. And I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
I think it does. And I just want to ask Michelle and Kimberly if you have any final thoughts or last questions or anything to add before we wrap up.
I'll just jump in. It's probably one of the best memories of my life doing Dead Man, and being able to work with Jim and Gary and Johnny and everybody that I was hanging out with there. So thank you for having me here, because it brought up a lot of really beautiful memories that I still carry today from that experience. Johnny and I were able to hang out after the shoot a few times, and he's just an honest, true gentleman and a kind human being, and Jim too. He's wonderful, and of course I love Gary. So I had a great time. So thanks for allowing me to relive all these memories. I've got so many more.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Michelle.
And
Kimberly.
I just want to say thank you to Gary and Michelle for joining us on this and sharing this. It's one thing to watch the movie. It's completely different to be able to have reflection on it from people who actually were acting in it. And so this was wonderful. And Jason, thank you so much for just allowing us to be a partner with you in this. And I really appreciate it.
We are so grateful to Swaya for being part of this, of course, but for all you do. It's just an incredible organization. So thank you for steering it to safety during this difficult moment. And thank you to the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. Gary, hope to see you soon in person. Michelle, it was great to meet you. I think we'll go out with a clip, Nobody in Modernity, to show that he does live on. And after that, we're going to just close off this meeting. So we've got about a minute and a half of the wonderful Nobody, somewhere in New York City, I think, right, Gary?
I'm sorry?
From
Jersey. If you're going to show, yeah. We shot it in Jersey City, I think, or just over in Jersey there.
Okay, so here we go. Nobody in Jersey City. Thank you, everyone who attended from around the world. And thank you, Kimberly, Michelle, and Gary. We'll see you guys soon in the living room.
That could be him right there. Should I shoot him?
That could be him right there. Should I shoot him?
You said it was a black guy, remember? So what's this guy? So what are you, Puerto Rican? I think he's some sort of... said it was a black guy, remember? Yo, what the hell are you?
So what are you, Puerto Rican?
I think he's some sort of an Indian or something.
Yo, what the hell are you?
Cayuga.
Cayuga? The fuck is Cayuga? Puerto Rican, Indian, nigger, same thing. I think we should just waste him anyway, just to be sure for Mr. Vargo. Well, it ain't authorized, so come on, let's go. I want to get the right son of a bitch anyhow.
Stupid fucking white man.
What did you say?
I said stupid fucking white man.
Why, you red nigger looking sitting bullshit motherfucker? Sam, you're losing control over here. Come on, let's go. Let's get the hell out of here. Cayuga my ass, you. Listen, you better learn to keep your fucking mouth shut. I'll blow your fucking brains out myself. You dumb fuck.